The Senate vote on a funding bill looks poised to fail ahead of a midnight deadline. As of now, the government is expected to shut down on the first anniversary of President Trump's inauguration. Democrats Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, Doug Jones, Joe Manchin, and Claire McCaskill all voted yes on the bill. 4 Republicans, Jeff Flake, Lindsey Graham, Mike Lee, and Rand Paul, all voted no. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has not voted yet, and this will continue until he votes. We have Molly Hooper, Margaret Bennett, and Nancy Cortez standing by with us to discuss. Molly, at what point will Mitch McConnell make that final vote?
Sorry, I'm just chuckling. I mean, there's been a lot to chuckle about these days. I mean, not funny, but I mean, just sort of kind of craziness up on Capitol Hill. I am not sure. You know, it's unclear whether the Republicans are trying to get some Democrats to change their mind. It's unclear whether there's arms being twisted and they're keeping the vote open for that reason. At this point, again, it's just unclear, and that's what's so unusual about this situation. You know, having covered Capitol Hill for several years, I have a few years under my belt. It's rare that leaders bring a bill like this to the floor without having the votes, you know, or at least knowing that they're not, knowing that they won't be able to, you know, twist a few arms when it comes down to it, because it seems like members were pretty, you know, they were pretty resolute in where they were going to go when this vote was called, and so, you know, especially because it's a government shutdown, it's just unclear at this point what the Republicans are going to do. Right. And this really does highlight the fact that, unlike tax reform, in which the Democrats really did not get to have a say, the Democrats are showing that, hey, guess what? We are here. We do matter, and you have to consult with us, and you have to work with us,
and
or else we're just not going to give you those votes.
Right, enough of us to make a difference. Margaret, what are you hearing from the White House? Anything new, or still crickets?
No, they told all the reporters to go home. They called what we refer to as a lid, saying the president essentially is not going to do anything in the public eye right now. And so you won't be hearing from him, at least through those traditional means. Can't say whether or not he's going to fire off a tweet or not. He's been in the residence for a few hours. But I would expect that he would communicate tomorrow. We already know that the White House has been planning its communication strategy when it comes to those all-important Sunday shows. They've got their legislative affairs director out there. They've got their budget director out there to try to explain this. And perhaps one utility of this vote is that they will have a list of names in terms of those who were willing to reach across the aisle. The newest senator we've got there, Doug Jones, a Democrat who chose to be bipartisan on this, that may have won him a few goodwill points with this White House to have done that. And then they'll have a list of who didn't come over from their own party. And to be clear here, they truly believe that Democrats are not angels on this. They will consistently point out that they believe that the Democrats simply wanted a shutdown. It had nothing to do with the policy. That will be the continuous message you will hear because this. Remember, Donald Trump will wake up tomorrow, President of the United States, on the 1-year anniversary of being the most powerful man in the world, and the government will be shut down on that anniversary date. He won't even be able to attend his own party, we don't think, except via teleconference for that big celebration down in Mar-a-Lago. So that's a powerful PR tool, and it is something that they are keen and very sensitive to, as you can understand, and they will be pushing back hard on. But when it comes to practical matters, you know, just hours ago, the budget director was out here talking to some of us saying, look, I think by open of business on Monday, we're going to be able to hash something out. Mark Short, the legislative affairs director, was also out there really trying to send a positive tone, one that didn't quite match with the tweet the president had sent saying, you know, it doesn't look so good at 10 o'clock with this vote that we just watched, and really saying, I think a deal is going to be possible within the next day or so. And then they're still holding out hope for that DACA deal, saying that is something that this White House still wants to do. The president still wants to do it. Ironically, the shutdown on these issues we're talking about, both sides say they actually agree on, and that they just want to differ on the timetable and how to politically line this up. And so it is an unusual situation to be in, but message-wise, the White House will hit with this. Democrats force this shutdown. That is going to be their message when we hear from the president himself.
So as the PR machine gears up, and as you said, all the talk shows get set up for this weekend, you think they're going to come out full force? There won't be any attempt at a reconciliation with those across the aisle?
No, I absolutely think there is an attempt, and that's what I'm saying. You are hearing and have heard for these past few days, look, we do want to get this DACA deal done. It's a matter of sequencing. It's a matter of who can use it as leverage, right? The Democrats are trying to use that as leverage now. The White House wants to use DACA as a leverage later when it comes to the broader immigration reforms that they want to get to. So they agree on this one principle. It's everything else around it that they're still arguing over. But this vote tonight, it wasn't just about that. There were other things that are very important to the president that he will be very frustrated he didn't get. He talks frequently about funding the military and the concerns there. He's not just talking about paychecks for those 1.3 active duty military men and women who won't be getting a paycheck for a while until they figure out this funding. And that's what happens when the government shuts down, 1.3 million of them. He's also talking about the broader issue, and that is this frustration that they can't come up with anything more than a few weeks at a time in terms of budgets and funding agreements. There's been a lot of pressure at this White House, and you could talk to our Pentagon correspondent David Martin in quite some detail about the frustration within the military in terms of being able to have our forces ready to go because they're scrambling for parts. They can't place orders they need to place because they don't have budget agreements and forecasts financially that they can order out with companies for. So there are some very legitimate things that aren't just about political theater here. I just want to emphasize that.
Sure.
But we are locked into a particularly poignant political moment given where we are with the anniversary of the Trump presidency.
I do think, though, it's a delicate balancing act between blaming the Democrats for the shutdown and also reaching across the aisle to them.
Yeah, and look, this White House, the strategy had been, they were very transparent about it. Look, we're going to target those Democrats in states where President Trump is extremely popular and won in the past election. So that's when Nancy went through some of who the Democrats were who crossed the aisle. Those were many of those names. That was the Joe Manchin of West Virginia. That was the Doug Jones,
Sure.
The newest senator there, saying that, look, they have found Democrats they can work with, but there are bigger political problems in terms of management, even within their own party. Remember, we constantly refer to President Trump as a Republican and the leader of the Republican Party, but he certainly doesn't have unity within that party. There still remains that internecine warfare, fundamental disagreement on what it means to be conservative. So it's a term we throw around, but frankly, I think Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump would define themselves in very different ways, even though they're under that same Republican mantle.
Lindsey Graham, who voted against the measure. I just want to point out that we just saw Senator Schumer, Durbin, and Flake all sort of huddled together. So the potential for dialogue continues at 11 o'clock tonight. Perhaps something will happen before midnight. Who knows?
Well, I think on this short-term funding issue, we're really running out the clock.
Yeah.
I think on the DACA stuff, based on what the White House has said, look, they've got until the beginning of March, really mid-February. They think they can continue to work through that time period to get something done on that. But once you've got this not happen for them the way they wanted, I don't know what that domino effect will be on everything else they at least said they wanted to get done.
Molly, what are you expecting to happen in the next hour?
Well, in the next hour, I'm not sure, but keep in mind, if there's a government shutdown, the president is supposed to give the State of the Union on January 30th. I mean, it just seems like he's kind of in a difficult position right now. It's very precarious, and it's unclear how he's going to move forward. And you know what else it's unclear is how he's going to respond to Mitch McConnell being unable to strike a deal. Remember what happened last summer when, Mitch McConnell said the president he wants things to move a little faster than actually than they do on Capitol Hill, and I think that he doesn't really understand that. And then the president just lashed out at Mitch McConnell. So I think that one thing to keep your eye on is how does the president respond or talk to Mitch McConnell over the next few days, because the fact is Mitch McConnell wasn't able to strike a deal.
It's interesting because we've been talking a bit about what this shutdown will mean for which federal agencies, who will not be going to work on Monday and who will be going to work. And NASA and the SpaceX program are sort of in an interesting place. They haven't been speaking too much about this particular shutdown, but apparently they are supposed to report to work on Monday and receive guidance on Monday about what they're supposed to do the next day, on Tuesday. So it's sort of, that is one agency that seems to be a little up in the air.
It feels like a lot of these agencies are up in the air, and the other added twist to all of this is that you have some of these entities. You look at the national parks; they're public-private partnerships. So, say Mount Vernon. Will Mount Vernon be open? This is just an example. I mean, given that the Ladies Society, a private society, a foundation, helps to run it in conjunction with the national government, the federal government. So. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and also how these agencies handle this "quote-unquote" carry forward money that they didn't spend in the last budget cycle. Mm-hmm. This money that Mick Mulvaney is talking about that apparently is out there and wasn't used during the Obama administration in 2013. So, it sounds like the way that Mick Mulvaney is making it sound that these agencies have enough to last for a week or two or even possibly 3. But once you get to that point, it's dry. I mean, talk about crickets. People aren't going to be going to work.
And not only will they not be going to work, but it's going to start to cost the government a lot of money. It's going to cost taxpayers a lot of money.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm looking at the report that examined the 2013 shutdown, and basically, the furloughed workers lost about $2.5 billion in compensation, according to analysts. The park system lost $500 million in revenue. So it's going to take a real, the economy will take a real hit. Definitely the 2013 shutdown happened for 2 weeks, so we're hoping that won't be the case here. Mm-hmm. But, this is going to cost the country real money.
Well, and that's probably, earlier tonight, President Trump tweeted something to the effect that this shutdown is going to, the Democrats want this shutdown because it's going to hurt the tax reform, the positive is impact from the tax reform on the economy. So the Democrats want this shutdown so that it's going to essentially make Republican tax reform, this new law, not work. It's just kind of like, where are you coming up with this? It seems like people kind of need to just sit down and quit tweeting and work on something, get it done.
Senator Rand Paul, where he says it costs us more to shut the government down than to keep it open, which is so ironic considering most of this is about spending. The disagreements are about spending and the budget. So
wild times.
So just want to let our viewers know the mail will still get to them. The post office will be open since the U.S. Postal Service has its own revenue stream. Air traffic controllers will remain on the job, so air travel should be mostly unaffected. Museums, some of the museums may stay open. It depends. Again, there's a lot of gray areas. I'm sure that a lot of employees themselves don't know what's going on. It's going to take a while to get all of that sorted out. The courts will continue. Federal courts would continue normal operations for the time being, according to a spokeswoman at the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. The Office of Special Counsel Robert Mueller will also remain open, according to a Department of Justice spokesman, who says all employees are considered exempt and would continue their operations.
What happens when you find out you're non-essential? I mean,
yeah, I know. Well, you get furloughed and you don't get a paycheck.
It's not fun. It doesn't. I mean, after 2013, hearing stories from people who were deemed non-essential, it hurts because they have bills to pay.
Absolutely, Margaret. I know you're out in the cold, and we so appreciate that you're with us. If you're still there, do you have
I'm still here.
Oh, great! Thank you so much. Do you have any information on whether President Trump will be going to Davos? We know he's not going to Mar-a-Lago, but what about Davos?
Yes, the plan is that the international travel will go through. You've already got Vice President Pence on his way to the Middle East. Secretary Tillerson takes off early in the week for Europe. And the president midweek is scheduled to go to Davos. And the White House has said he's going to continue to do that, to hold some of these meetings with world leaders and also deliver a speech. Now, the speech was supposed to be really sort of this moment to say America is back. America first doesn't necessarily mean that you should be looking elsewhere to bring your investment dollars. In fact, the president really wanted to go and advertise what he did get done in Congress, which was that tax reform package. And he really wanted to go and advertise that corporate tax rate has come down and say to these business leaders, bring your dollars back to America. That was supposed to be the message. The optics of having a government shutdown and the inability to get his agenda through, even if it's just keeping the lights on in the government for a few more weeks, it really counters some of that powerful message that he had hoped to deliver. But he will still be going. And I think if you look, in many ways, some had worried that the president, not just would be upset about not getting this through and worried about, the symbolism on the anniversary of his first year in office, but also if this would in any way damage the stock market rally that he has been so proud of. I mean, the market is up 30% since his election day. That is pretty remarkable.
Yes.
And he's very proud of that. It's a dangerous thing to take credit for when the market goes up, because you don't know what you're going to do when it goes back down. And obviously there are many forces there. But if you look at the way the stock market has reacted, it's really kind of brushed this off, as it has many past government shutdowns. In some ways, folks have come to expect very little out of Washington in terms of functioning, in terms of policy making. I mean, that's a reflection of where we are politically.
Yes.
And so, maybe they do get to brush this off, but I think message-wise it is going to complicate what the president wanted to send as this clear signal in Davos. He is still going. They say it's part of his constitutional responsibility to continue to uphold the diplomatic work of America, which is why they're justifying sending Air Force One to that very expensive Swiss ski resort.
Well, that's the part of it that I wonder how well that will play if there's a government shutdown. The president at this very expensive Swiss ski resort. The optics of that might not be so great. But Nancy, I would love to bring you in if you could give us some insight into what's happening on the Senate floor right now.
Well, there's one main reason why, if you are the leader of the Senate, you hold a vote open as long as Mitch McConnell has been holding this vote open. After all, everyone, aside from himself, has already voted. We already know that the bill is going down. So why are they all still there? Well, holding a bill open kind of freezes everyone in place. They've got to stay there on the Senate floor where a lot of wheeling and dealing can take place. So we've seen Leader Mitch McConnell, his Democratic counterpart Chuck Schumer, head to the back of the floor to talk things out. Then we've seen Leader Schumer talking very intently with Lindsey Graham. We've seen McConnell talking very intently with Jeff Flake. So clearly something is happening. They are trying to work something out in advance of this midnight deadline. But I'll point out something else as well that's interesting. If you look at the senators who are in the chamber right now, these are not people who look particularly panicked about an impending government shutdown. And that's because, as troubling as it sounds to us and a lot of people around the country when you think of, the lights going out on the U.S. government at 12:01 a.m., a lot of the senators that I've spoken to on the right and left seem to believe that as long as they are able to work something out this weekend, when, after all, most government employees are not at work anyway, as long as they can get something done so that they can get the government reopened by Monday, they think that the impact will be minimal. Certainly there will not be no impact. It will create some upheaval, but they don't seem to be as concerned about that possibility as you would think they are. And that's what, you see them there on the Senate floor. They're laughing and joking, even as these very intense negotiations take place in pockets of the room.
So do you think then that Senator McConnell could call another vote? If there is something that he thinks could get 60 votes, but that's pretty difficult. I mean, you have to have legislation in hand to be able to do that. So, you can't just 1 minute say, I think I've got a deal on Plan B, and then the next minute hold a vote. You've got to craft that legislation. You've got to give people a chance to look at it. You've got to go through various procedural votes. So it's not something that you can do on a dime. The only thing that they could do at this point in order to stave off that midnight shutdown would be to come up with some kind of tentative DACA deal that they could show to Democrats, and it would just, it would have to be written literally like on the back of an envelope and say, this is what our DACA plan is going to include. Vote for this government funding bill now, and you have my word that we will put this deal into legislative language and hold a vote, let's say, within the next week and a half. And then you could go ahead and vote again on the bill that just failed, and you might have a different outcome. Right. Because everyone is looking for a way out of this situation. But anything that happens tonight will not avert the government showdown at this point. No, I mean that could. But you were saying that they would have to vote on it later. They couldn't vote on it tonight. No, if he were to show them a DACA deal and say, look, go ahead, let's vote again on this piece of legislation that you just voted against to keep the government running for 4 weeks. And, I promise you that this outline of a DACA deal will be put into legislation, and you'll have a chance to vote on that as well within the next week. You have my word. That could be something that would entice Democrats, and then they could just pass that 4-week government spending bill, and it's already been passed by the House, and hallelujah, they've reached a deal. But that is the only scenario at this point that could stave off a government shutdown altogether. Well, hey, that sounds like at least going into the weekend. Yeah, well, it certainly sounds like an exciting option, and it lends some tension and suspense to the goings on. Molly, what do you think? There's any possibility of that happening?
Well, what they also could do is if Bob Corker, according to one of our stellar reporters at the Hill newspaper, Jordan Carney, Bob Corker apparently told reporters that the leadership is on the verge of a deal to avert the government shutdown. With it's a matter of a difference of like 3 or 4 days, that they would have some kind of deal that would go through the State of the Union, and then then the government funding would run out. We'd basically get to this point again. But if a deal like that comes together, then what McConnell could do is he could vote against cloture, or he could vote for cloture, whatever, gavel down this vote. Tomorrow morning the Senate comes in, and then they would vote on this other deal. The House comes back into session, they vote on that, and everybody goes home. Because the whole thing is as Nancy was saying, really, most federal workers don't work on the weekend. So yes, technically there would be a government shutdown, but really the impact of it wouldn't be felt as much as, say, no deal before Monday. So as long as there's something in place and federal workers can show up on Monday, both parties could claim, hey, guess what? We averted a government shutdown, et cetera, so forth.
All right. I want to bring in CBSN political contributor and political reporter for The Guardian, Sabrina Siddiqui. She was just down on the Senate floor. She joins us now. Sabrina, tell us who you spoke with.
Well, I spoke with Senator Bob Corker as well, and I know that we were just talking about how he was the one who exited the chamber and informed reporters that he was confident there will not be a shutdown tonight, that negotiations are underway among congressional leaders for a shorter-term deal. It's a matter of days, something perhaps in early February or right after the State of the Union, as was just pointed out. It's notable that leaders Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell left the chamber together. This is one of the first signs we've seen that both sides are willing to come back to the negotiating table, because there hasn't, frankly, been a lot of communication between leaders from both parties. When you contrast it with previous shutdowns where there were last-minute negotiations happening as the clock kept on ticking, for most of today, you really didn't see either side show any signs of thawing in their position. But I think they are going more perhaps in the route of what Lindsey Graham suggested, which is somewhere in the 2-week margin of a CR that just gives them a little bit more time to negotiate and prevent a shutdown, which is what no one seems to want tonight.
So in the immediate moment, the only change would be a shorter CR.
In the immediate moment, yes. I think there's still some questions as to whether that would also reauthorize the Children's Health Insurance Program. Certainly Republicans had tied a 6-year reauthorization of CHIP to the 4-week extension that was passed in the House. I think it would be somewhat odd in terms of optics to suddenly strip that language out. So we're going to have to see if that's part of the deal. What we do know, having said that, is it is clear there will not be a compromise on DACA, on protections for the young undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. That is precisely why congressional leaders feel that they need more time to negotiate, since that is still the primary sticking point here, certainly in both chambers of Congress.
So you're saying this would be an agreement that would just, in essence, buy more time, but aren't there a lot of Democrats and some Republicans who are really, sticking their heels in and saying, that's what I don't want. We don't want any more time. We have to finally deal with this.
Well, you have heard palpable frustration that this is the 4th time that members of Congress are voting on another short-term continuing resolution, that they've been kicking the can down the road since September. That was when funding for the government was first due to expire. But I also think that we're now looking at a situation where you have less than an hour to keep the government open. And more than anything, the driving force at this point in time is to avert a shutdown. I think both parties have also become more cognizant that it looks like the public will apply equal blame to both Democrats and Republicans. There are really no winners if the government shuts down. It is, of course, up for debate as to what more time will really buy in essence, but it certainly would escalate pressure on leaders in both parties to reach a longer-term spending bill. They certainly cannot afford to come back in 2 weeks and go through this same the spectacle that we've been through in the last 48 hours.
So who was Senator Corker specifically saying he was negotiating with?
Well, Senator Corker left the chamber as the vote to pass the House bill fell short of the necessary 60 votes that it would need to overcome a filibuster. It's not clear that he himself is part of the negotiations. No. He was operating more so off of hearsay. You've seen a lot of these senators huddled on the floor talking about where there might be room for negotiation. I think one of the telling images was Chuck Schumer hovering over Lindsey Graham.
Yes.
Lindsey Graham, of course, being one of the Republicans who's been the most outspoken in his support for Dreamers. He is a co-author of the DREAM Act with Dick Durbin, the #2 Democrat in the Senate. And it was Lindsey Graham, frankly, who floated this idea of a 2-week or 2.5-week CR as sort of a Hail Mary. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the most that we could get done. Because what Democrats were initially floating was maybe just 3 or 4 more days. And I think that certainly leaders in both parties don't see the benefit in coming back Monday or Tuesday and having to face a similar deadline. There is some, I think, sense that maybe in the next 2 weeks, because they were close, remember last week, to a bipartisan deal on immigration, it really just comes down to going back to the White House and saying, let's just get this resolved once and for all. There is a will to do it. It's just a question of how and when.
Well, that's why it's hard for me to share Senator Corker's optimism that this shorter-term CR is going to make that much of a difference. Do you have a sense that's, you being right there and having been on the Senate floor, do you have a sense that they are going to agree on a shorter CR?
It does seem like it's heading that way. I think that in the Senate, there's certainly more likelihood that there will be enough support to pass something along those lines. The question is, of course, what happens in the House? They effectively adjourned earlier today, and members were initially told that they might even be able to go home, but they were also at the same time told to keep their schedules flexible, because I think House Republican leaders knew that this could very well be the case where they're going to have to return for a late night vote just to prevent a shutdown.
Right.
Are they going to be able to corral votes? Having said that, from the Freedom Caucus, there are a lot of open-ended questions as to how exactly they do it. Maybe it means that they go past the deadline for a matter of an hour, where the shutdown doesn't truly take effect. But I think that House Republicans certainly had a plan to try and jam the Senate, but it clearly didn't work. And it does seem that it would be hard to imagine the House would then come back and stymie the Senate once again. I think the real goal here is to try at all costs to prevent what would be the first government shutdown in more than 4 years.
And Nancy, are you hearing something similar about the possibility of a shorter-term CR?
I am. I'm hearing rumblings like Sabrina of the possibility of maybe a 1.5 2-week continuing resolution, keeping the government funded so that they could have time to actually try in earnest to work out a DACA deal. Now, some of this may be wishful thinking from people who don't want to see the government shut down, but you've had Lindsey Graham pushing for this notion all night, saying, let's meet in the middle, not 4 days, not 4 weeks, but something in between to try to make a more reasonable attempt to reach a compromise when it comes to the Dreamers and then move on. And that is most likely what is being discussed right now as Leader McConnell holds this vote open. He's been talking to Chuck Schumer. He's been talking to Jeff Flake. He's been talking to Lindsey Graham, all the players you would expect him to be working. And what we're really curious about right now, frankly, is whether when he went to the back for quite a period of time with Chuck Schumer, were they talking to the president?
Right. Well,
did
Nancy,
he get involved?
I just want to interrupt by saying that we haven't heard from the president, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, has tweeted. She says Democrats can't shut down the booming Trump economy. Are they now so desperate they'll shut down the government? Instead, hashtag Schumer shutdown. So
that's a clever talking point. It's one that the president has used all week. But frankly, I've not gotten any sense from Democrats whatsoever that what they're really trying to do is hurt the economy and slow down the momentum of the president's tax cuts.
Yeah.
That's a pretty far-fetched notion. It really is about the Dreamers, the young people who have come to this country illegally, and it's also about taking a stand against Republican leadership that has pretty much boxed them out of much influence. I mean, think about the past year since President Trump took office. Republicans tackled health care reform for months, hashing things out behind closed doors, no Democratic involvement whatsoever. Then they moved to tax reform, a lot more successful, hashed things out again behind closed doors, no Democratic involvement whatsoever. These are issues that Democrats care about, but they were shut out of the negotiations and didn't feel like they were offered any amendments on the floor either, and they've gotten frustrated and they want to show Republicans, hey, look, you've got to negotiate with us sometimes.
Flake, McConnell, and Graham huddling not too far from Senator Schumer. It will be interesting to see what comes out of this possibility of a shorter-term CR. I'm curious, Nancy, whether you think that the same Democrats who really were just digging in their heels saying, you know what, enough of this, we're not going to kick the can down the road any longer, would be amenable to a shorter-term CR.
Sure, especially if they were given assurances that during those 2 weeks there were going to be genuine, serious negotiations between the Democratic and Republican leadership on a DACA deal. And they are going to take their signals from their leader. If Leader Schumer tells them, okay, I think we've gotten what we wanted out of this, we don't actually want a government shutdown, this is sort of the best option we have right now, let's do it, most or all of the Democrats will fall in line. The bigger question becomes, does the House fall in line? You know,
Right.
The House felt like we did our job. We passed a 4-week government funding bill, and now you're going to drag us all back here on Saturday to pass your bill. That always makes House Republicans grumpy, but at the same time, you've got Senate Democrats saying, well, you shouldn't have passed that bill in the first place, knowing that we were going to reject it. We should have had more bipartisanship early on.
Speaking of those House lawmakers, are they standing by? I mean, are they on speed dial? Everyone's ready to rush back?
Sure, they've been told that they need to be back here at an hour's notice. So the big question becomes if, they take that bill, that 4-week funding bill, and just kind of scratch out the 4 and put in a 2 and pass it tonight in the Senate or in the wee hours of the morning. Do they haul all these House members out of bed and have them vote in the middle of the night? Or do they say, okay, the House, come back at 10 o'clock in the morning and vote on the bill as well? And hey, guess what? The government was partially shut down for about 10 hours in the middle of the night from a Friday to a Saturday, and it didn't really have that much impact.
Right. Margaret, I want to bring you in here. What does all of this do to the State of the Union address?
Makes it more difficult. Sorry, I was just trying to message some of the White House officials who've gone home or who are on the Hill right now trying to get some of this done. In terms of the State of the Union, look, yes, we're only 11 days out from that. They had been planning this in terms of some of the typical optics and the big events that go into it, the star guests to drive home the president's message. And as I mentioned, part of that was going to be similar to that speech that the president has been planning for Davos, which is, look, I delivered on this massive campaign promise of tax reform. America's economy is booming. Bring your money back. But that message that I delivered, I'm in control, is countered by what we're seeing right now. And I think it's also, the message that the White House says the Democrats seem to be betting on, that Republicans will take the blame, the White House is pushing back on and saying, look, fundamentally, when it comes down to voting, to get to 60, we need others to cross the aisle. And so they will continue to say it's not our fault. And so that is something I would expect to be a theme for many days. One of the last shutdowns we saw with the Obama administration lasted for some time. So we don't know that this will all be resolved, but White House officials, at least ahead of this vote, had been, though they didn't necessarily think that this particular vote would go their direction, had been optimistic that, as I said, things would be worked out by open of business on Monday. So there is this desire to strike a deal. There is a desire to avert a shutdown. It's just getting there that has been the hurdle. This isn't necessarily as simple as some have made this out. The president has been really clear that he wants to get some of this done. It has to personally trouble him that it isn't going his way. But in the course of just 1 week, last week, we saw so many and heard many different conflicting positions from the president when it came to some of his broader legislative goals for immigration. Others who have had to deal with him have been frustrated that what he has presented as an attribute that's a positive thing, his flexibility, is sometimes hard to maneuver around rhetorically and strategically when he changes that position. And so that has been something fundamentally that will continue to be a challenge for the Republican-led Congress that he's going to stand before for that State of the Union and say, execute my agenda here. Because so many of them, including Leader Mitch McConnell, said, I'm sorry, I'm still not clear on what your agenda is when it comes to immigration. I'm not clear on those points because you haven't been consistent in that messaging. So, look, they are continuing to work through this. This isn't something new for the Trump administration. I mean, if you are looking for ideological consistency, you're just not going to find it.
No.
And that's not what the president was elected on. And they tried to make a virtue out of that. And it continues to frustrate the party that's trying to execute on the agenda he says he has.
I just want to point out that Senator Graham is speaking to a huddle of Democrats. Who knows, could be making some sort of offer, concession. It appears as if there is still negotiation taking place on the Senate floor, even at this hour. So we'll see what comes out of that, whether it is the rumored shorter CR or or
well,
not?
I will say, Mick Mulvaney and some of the White House officials who'd been very strident in many ways in how they've been talking about this going into the vote, said that they really frowned upon any idea of going for a shorter term CR. So if that's where we end up, that's not just a compromise, that's a reversal from where they had laid things out, saying, look, if Democrats are simply about DACA, how could you agree to a short-term funding mechanism that didn't have that attached? How could that be a matter of principle?
Right.
Margaret,
what do you make of the press secretary's tweet? I mean, we haven't heard from the president, but a tweet.
if they cared so much about those CHIP children, they would have never let that program expire. And you can't try it again.
All right, Janet, thanks for your call. That was in Winter Park, Florida. We've got Shannon on the line for Republicans in Reseda, California. Hi, Shannon. No, let me try this again. Try to get Shannon on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi,
I'm
Shannon.
actually in Los Angeles. Thank you for taking my call. You know, I have a few things to say. I don't want to be long, but I think that it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. If you can't pass this budget, you shouldn't get paid. Mm-hmm. If you can't do your job, you're not going to get paid. But for the Democrats to say that they want to hold DACA in order to pass this budget, the Democrats should be holding that over our heads. And just for like a way of history, my family is ninth cousin was Harry S. Truman. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I've recently switched parties based upon the fact of being in Los Angeles, California, and seeing the way the politics have gone here in Los Angeles and in California, and I'm tired of it. You know, we should put Americans first. Like I said, I'm a single mother. I pay taxes. I have 2 children, and I don't think that we should have DACA involved in what's going on with our budget. So, you know, this isn't about our president. This is about Congress, and if they can't get it together, then I think that they should all quit taking a paycheck, and that's all I have to say.
Thanks for the call, Shannon. We've got Akron, Ohio caller on next. This is Evan calling on the Independence line. Hi, Evan.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. I just wanted to explain what I think right now. I'm a 30-year-old male. I have a beautiful wife who is a nurse practitioner, and she works very hard with what she does. And looking at what's going on right now, what is the future of everything that's going on going to be? We're not really sure what anyone's going to vote for now. We're really worried about people not being paid for the jobs that they're doing. And I really don't understand how grown men can't get together, even if they believe in different things. But at the same time, stuff. But we'll see what happens with everything going on with all the changes.
Sure.
We're not really sure.
Right, right. All right, Evan, thanks for the call from Akron. I've got another Ohio caller waiting on the line. Dayton, Ohio. Jerry's calling, Democrat. Jerry, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I'm calling because I've been listening to the other callers and everything, and I find it extremely interesting because one thing I haven't heard anybody mention is the fact that the last time, to the best of my knowledge, that the government even had a completely balanced budget was under Bill Clinton in the 90s. Since then, it's just been these extensions, funding. America's credit rating dropped. So the fact that in less than 20 minutes at this point, 4 minutes?
Right. 4 minutes, yeah.
4 minutes, the government's essentially going to shut down again. How is that going to affect our credit rating? And, you know, Democrats and Republicans are able to work together. It's been proven in the past when you can look at other bills that have been pushed through. The fact that they can't seem to work together with a budget is just stupid, petty infighting. And while I personally won't be affected, my brother's in the military. He'll be impacted. And calling from Dayton, literally right down the street, is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Thousands of people who work there will be impacted. Everybody, I'm sure, all of the government employees are sick and tired of being put on edge with the threat of government shutdown, and now it's imminent. Congressmen, Republicans, Democrats alike should no longer receive a paycheck. The moment the government shuts down, they should not receive a paycheck. And they can work together. They're just choosing not to.
That sounds like a consensus on the lawmakers not getting their own paycheck as well. Thanks for the call, Jerry. Curtis Bay, Maryland, Republican. Robert, you're next.
Thank you for taking my call. I don't think it really amazes me that the Democrats are so brainwashed by the media. For one, you have 51 senators that are Republicans. You have 49 that are Democrats. Only 4 Republicans aren't voting for this bill. So if the Democrats out there can't see that their party is the reason that this budget isn't going to be passed and this country is going to shut down, then they're fools. Then they're fools. I mean, you need 60 votes, people, 60. And that's what I'm hearing. All these Democrats, blah, 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 blah. It's the Republicans' fault. 4, yes, 0. And that's the problem with this country. Pelosi, Schumer, nothing but hot air. Anything that, this is why I voted for Trump. I'm tired of these Democrats and Republicans going back and forth and back and forth. They never agree on anything.
And Robert, just to let you know, 5 Democrats voted in favor of this. A lot of them in states up for re-election in 2018, this year. So they did. A couple crossovers from the Republican side. Rand Paul voted against it. A number of others. So there was some crossover, I think, 4 Republicans.
Okay, five Democrats out of how many?
Right, almost half. Yeah, exactly.
No, 5 Democrats out of 49.
Right.
Okay, so what's the reason this country's going to, shut down Monday?
Right.
Democrats or Republicans? If they can't see that, you need 60 votes, people. But the media is everything that Trump has did. The Democrats just fight him on everything. They are not trying to work for the people of this country.
Well,
and
30 seconds ago, Robert, we've entered.
All right. Well,
shutdown.
Here we go. We're going to be shut down. But in my opinion, DACA, it should not be part of the bill. Shouldn't be part of the budget. So thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Robert. Thanks for weighing in. And just a few minutes now after midnight Eastern time here in Washington, D.C., a couple of tweets that reporters are pointing out. Salil Kapoor with Bloomberg saying that you can kind of see on the floor there sort of a scrum around Chuck Schumer, Leslie Graham of South Carolina, a bunch of others. Still trying to come together. They're going to be working on this now over the weekend, we can assume. Again, this cloture vote here to move forward to limit debate is not officially called, but right now it's sitting at 50 yes votes. That was 50 votes to limit debate on this and to move forward on a vote on the continuing resolution, 48 no's. A statement from the White House press secretary, Senate Democrats own the Schumer shutdown. Tonight, they put politics above our national security, military families, vulnerable children, and our country's ability to serve all Americans. We will not negotiate the status of unlawful immigrants while Democrats hold our lawful citizens hostage over their reckless demands. This is the behavior of obstructionist losers, not legislators. When Democrats start paying our armed forces and first responders will reopen negotiations on immigration reform. During this politically manufactured Schumer shutdown, the president and his administration will fight for and protect the American people. So again, that coming from the Office of the Press Secretary over at the White House. Taking your calls, the numbers up on your screen. Join in if you can. Also on Twitter at C-SPAN so that we can find your comments there. Lawrenceville, Georgia, Independent Line. We've got David. Hi, David.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good. How about you?
I'm just watching this shutdown go down and listen to a lot of the comments that are being made by Democrats and Republicans. And I think that Trump is the leader of this country, and he's Now, people want to blame the Democrats for standing their grounds. Mm-hmm. That's their opinion. But in my opinion, they need to stand their ground because these DACA people, they're tax-paying people too. They pay their taxes. And also, I'm an ex-military man. Mm-hmm. And not only are the militaries going to be hurt by not getting paid, but you also have civilian workers that are federal employees that are not going to get paid. So there's a lot of people going to be hurt by this. But I just think that the president should take leadership and own up to this and do what needs to be done. Bring the country together instead of sitting back blaming Democrats and Obama for everything. Because, you see, we've had this before. You know, the Republicans did the same thing when they were in the minority, when Obama was president. And you didn't have all that outrage with the Republicans when the Republicans was in the minority, when Mitch McConnell and Ted Cruz and the Tea Party led their revolt and they shut down the government. But with all that being said, I don't think this is going to last long because somebody's got to come and some adults need to come to the table and negotiate and get this thing passed. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have to say for that.
Thanks for the call from Lawrenceville, Georgia. And just to piggyback on what you were saying there, Nancy Cordes, again with CBS News, saying at this point it's pretty clear there is going to be at least a temporary government shutdown. And so, in a way, the deadline pressure has eased a little bit because they know they're not going to meet the deadline. Catherine up next, calling from Tennessee, Republican line. Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. What the American people are witnessing tonight, or have witnessed tonight, is the Democrats that have, has deliberately, with willful and malicious and premeditated intent to cause harm to the American people, when they have put the lives of children that are on the CHIP program, their lives are in jeopardy. How many children are in the hospital tonight that need help and need medical attention that are going to probably be discharged? And how many of the American military families that live paycheck to paycheck, okay, to pay their bills, are not going to have a paycheck to pay their rent or their car note or the electricity come Monday? Mm-hmm. And then this DACA issue is not even a part of this bill whatsoever. I mean, yes, we do need to do something about DACA, and we need to fix this immigration problem once and for all. But to hold the whole United States hostage over DACA is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have to say, and I want to thank you for C-SPAN giving everybody the opportunity to call in and to voice their opinions.
Really appreciate your voice, Catherine. Thanks so much for calling. Bristol, Tennessee, independent line. William's calling in. Go ahead, William.
Yeah, it's amazing how things go around in this world. It's like one man said a long time ago, can't we all just get along? I mean, you know, really. I mean, you know, it's like this. They want us to set our budget each month and everything else. But the way I look at it is, if I was there, I'd be like Stone Cold. I open a can of whoop ass on everybody right there on the spot. I mean, I would like to rock, put them through the table. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, really, it's like a circle. It all goes around. And like Mitch McConnell, he was praising about all this budget stuff, and he ain't even voted yet. He's not even a man. I mean, what is he? Hell, Kentucky, half of Kentucky is a dry state. I mean, you know, he worry about his own country, or his own city, and still worrying about his own damn self. I mean, really. It's like this. If I was there, open can of whoop ass on every damn one of them. I mean, you know, I wouldn't care who it is. Bob Corker, like President Trump, fire every damn one of them. Start all over it. Hell, Jay Clampton can do better than what they can. That's the way I look at it.
William calling Bristol, Tennessee there. Bel Air, Maryland, Democrats line. Adam, you're up next.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet.
I definitely think the divisiveness of this country has reached an all-time high, as we've seen with the callers from the Republican and Democrat lines. But I think we see it even clearer within the Senate, and especially now. And I can't believe that blaming the Democrats for this utter failure of Donald Trump is even a thought in Republicans or independents or anybody's mind. This failure comes straight from the Republicans, who controlled both the House and the Senate. I mean, they have 51 seats. They have the ability to get their actions completed. And, of course, the president won't veto any bills that come through a Republican party, but they have completely failed. You're talking about 9 Democrats. Those are the 9 Democrats, because they need 60 votes. I'm sure they can get the 51 from their own party. And you're talking about 9 Democrats, and you're blaming the entire Democratic Party. But it's because the president is holding DACA hostage. He's holding this bill or this program hostage, letting these undocumented immigrants kind of sit in limbo while he tries to get funding for a border wall, which he originally said Mexico would pay for. I mean, it's the absurdity here is ridiculous. And now myself and plenty of my friends who are all federal workers here in Maryland are at risk of losing our jobs this week.
And do you think it's going to go much past this weekend, Adam?
Well, I think if it's anything like 2013, we have at least several weeks of furlough, which who knows if we'll get repaid for it, especially with both the House and Senate controlled by Republicans who don't seem to care much for the people in the federal government. I mean, we've seen that time and time again.
Were you a federal worker in 2013 as well?
No, I wasn't. No, I'm a recent federal, so I've never had to go through this process. But the current administration is really stressing me out, giving me not a good chance, not a good entry into the federal workforce that I would come to expect under an Obama administration. I think something like this, especially had Obama had a House and Senate controlled by Democrats, would have never happened. And you just can't hold bills like DACA or programs like DACA under like a hostage situation just to get funding for a wall that is completely unnecessary and he's changed his opinion on several times. I mean, this administration is absurd, and I just can't believe that the divisiveness between the two parties has reached an all-time high. I mean, most people in America are moderates. It's true, but this administration and the way that the world is working, it has created this division where you need to pick a side. I mean, we're all in the middle, and we know what morals, where our moral standpoint is. And it doesn't mean kicking people out of this country and putting them in a country they've never been just because they're undocumented. It's absurd.
And Adam, what does this mean for you as far as being a worker come Monday, or if it extends longer, paying the bills?
It means I won't be able to, unfortunately. It's because of this hostage kind of situation that the Republicans have perpetuated in the Senate. I won't be able to for at least a couple weeks until we are later hopefully reimbursed for the furlough time.
Thanks for the call, Adam. Just a couple.
Republicans in 2018 that they can state that the Democrats are for illegal immigrants over Americans.
Saying that we will not negotiate the status of unlawful immigrants while Democrats hold our lawful citizens hostage over their reckless demands. Now, shut down. Some lawmakers, as they said earlier, expecting that they'd be able to turn things around over the weekend, maybe even before Monday. So we're expecting that was proposing a slightly shorter continuing resolution, a CR, to fund the government for 3 weeks instead of 4. And it sounded as if Bob Corker of on the Senate floor has not officially been called, but again needed 60 votes for cloture to limit debate. They only got 50.
On this vote, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 49. And the motion is not agreed. And 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted.
Mention of my colleague's statement of the a part of the statement of the White House press secretary tonight, presumably on behalf of the administration, over their reckless demands. That appropriately represents the White House view of where we are for the sake of irresponsible political games. A government shutdown was 100% avoidable, completely avoidable. Nothing, not a thing they do not support. Nothing they do not support. Perhaps across the aisle, some of our Democratic colleagues are feeling the answer is simple. Their very own government shutdown. Shutdown effects on the American people describe exactly what this will mean. For America's men and women in uniform, shutting down the government means, for the families of fallen heroes, it may well mean a freeze on survivor death benefits. For veterans who rely on our promise of care, is true. Thanks to the Democratic leader's decision to filibuster an extension of the state children's health insurance program, I'm having trouble understanding which one of these outcomes my Democratic colleagues could possibly be proud of. Which one of them? So, ignored the governors, including 7 Democrats who wrote Congress begging us. They held all this hostage, all of it hostage, over the completely unrelated issue, operations of the federal government, and secure certainty for these S-chip kids. Well, we're going to continue to do all we can. We'll vote again so the American people knows who stands for them.
believe many of my Republican colleagues sincerely want to get a deal. I know their hearts are in the right place. I know they lament the fact that we now needed both parties to work together. None of that happened here today. Now, all of this problem is because Republican leadership can't get to yes because President Trump refuses to. Mr. President, President Trump, if you are listening, I am urging you, please take yes for an answer. The way things went today, the way you turned from a bipartisan deal, it's almost as if you were rooting for a shutdown. And now we'll have one. And the blame should crash entirely on President Trump's shoulders. Trump shutdown, because there is no one who deserves the blame for the position we find ourselves in more than President Trump. He walked away from 2 bipartisan deals, including one today in which I even put the border wall on the table. What will it take for President Trump to say yes and learn how to execute the rudiments of government? Tomorrow marks a year to the day President Trump took the oath of office on the Capitol steps. Unfortunately, a Trump shutdown would be a perfect encapsulation of the chaos he's unleashed on our government. Instead of bringing deals in Congress, and now at this late hour, his behavior is on the verge of grinding our government to a halt, a Trump shutdown. Democrats will continue to strive for a bipartisan agreement on all of the outstanding issues. I know there are men and women of goodwill on the other side of the aisle who are just as upset as I am with the direction we're headed in. I plead with them to see reason and prevail upon their leaders, and most of all the President, to give us the space to work together, to let us do the job the American people sent us here to do. When President Trump decides he is finally ready to lead his party to a deal, Democrats will be ready, willing, and eager to clinch it. There is a path forward. We can reach it quickly. Tomorrow, the President and the 4 leaders should immediately sit down and finish this deal so the entire government can get back to work on Monday. I yield the floor.
I commend the 5 Democrats who voted not to shut the government down. The new senator from Alabama during his campaign said it was important to fund the S-chip program before it ran out of money. So there were 5 courageous Democrats on the other side who stood up to this ridiculous argument that it made sense somehow to shut down the government over an illegal immigration issue that the vast majority of this body would like to do something about anyway. So I want to particularly commend the 5 Democrats who had the courage to stand up to this ridiculous strategy that put their whole party in an incredible predicament, because, as the White House just indicated, the president's not going to talk about the issue at all while the government shut down. He made it quite clear. He said, when Democrats start paying our armed forces and first responders, we'll reopen negotiations on immigration reform. So this particular strategy has eliminated the possibility of getting a signature on the thing they shut the government down over. Anybody explain to me this strategy? I'm perplexed. I wasn't first in my class, but I wasn't last either. How does this get them what they're looking for? Well, we'll continue to talk because when all the games stop, the issues are still there. Every single one of them are still there. The American people expect us to act like adults, to get together and solve the problems. Now, I'll be offering an amendment to change the date to February the 8th. We'll unfortunately not be able to get that vote tonight, but I'll be subsequently asking for consent. But at some point here, we'll be voting on February the 8th, and that's the date that the senator from South Carolina, senior senator from South Carolina, and I've been talking about, the Democratic leader and I have been talking about, which begins to move a little bit closer to where our friends on the other side said they wanted to be, but a reasonable period of time that takes into account the State of the Union, party conferences, and just the amount of time it takes to actually write a bill, have an agreement. I mean, you can't just reach an agreement and snap like your fingers and everything falls into place and you're ready to go. So a reasonable period to first agree and then write and get ready to pass this negotiated settlement that we've been working on for months, February the 8th is a very reasonable time. And so I'm going to give, I hear there's sentiment for that on both sides of the aisle. I hope so at some point. We'll vote on that option. I can't get that vote tonight, but I'm going to ask consent to have that vote.
As for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There is. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Booker. Mr. Burr. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy. Collins. Cotton. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Daines. Mr. Donnelly. Mrs. Ernst. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Blake. Mr. Gardner. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Ms. Harris. Ms. Heitkamp, Mr. Heller, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Eisen, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Langford, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Manch, Mr. Merkley, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Sass, Mr. Scott, Mrs. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tester, Mr. Van Hollen, House, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative: Alexander, Barrasso, Blunt, Bozeman, Burr, Capito, Cassidy, Fisher, Flake, Gardner, Grassley, Hatch, Heitkamp, Heller, Hoven, Hall, Perdue, Portman, Risch, Roberts, Rounds, Rubio, Scott, Shelby. Casey, Coons, Cortez Masto, Duckworth, Durbin, Feinstein, Gillibrand, Harris, Murphy, Murray, Nelson, Peters, Reed, Schatz, Shaheen, Smith, Stabenow. Mr. Sanders, no. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Graham, aye. No. Mr. Sass, aye. Mr. Moran, Mr. Schumer, no. Ms. Cantwell, Mr. Inhofe, aye.